because it affects everybody in the county. Yeah. What a crazy thing.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is still morning, I think. Yep. Good morning. We want to welcome you to the Davenport unit of the NAACP 2019. We want to welcome you to this press conference on a very, very serious and on a very, very personal mission as far as our branch is concerned. As far as I am concerned, as a pastor in the community for the past 33 years. I also grew up in the Quad City before I left. It is important. The reason I say that it is important is because I was blessed to be surrounded by strong men. Men in the Masons, men in the community, as well as pastors, as well as just people who knew who I was. We need to keep that line going, and I'm not pleased, neither are a lot of my congregants pleased, or others that I come into contact with are pleased with the direction that we are going as far as African American young men and men. So, according, let me just share this with you, according to recent sentencing project report, the black youth placement rate in Iowa was more than double, and I emphasize the word more than double, the national average. And young African Americans in Iowa were nearly 9 times as likely as their white peers to be committed to facilities such as detention centers, residential treatment centers, group homes, and youth prisons. Scott County appears to be driving much of this statewide disparity. A review of the data from 2016 to 2019 shows the racial disparity was the highest in Scott County. Black youth in Scott County were more disproportionately impacted by formal complaints, petitions, adjudications, and adult waivers than white Scott County youth, at a higher rate when compared to Black Hawk County, Lynn County, Polk County, and Woodbury counties. And these are counties that are comparable in size to Scott County. Our agenda for today will be this. First of all, our president, Mike Guster, will be announcing our 3-point plan. From that, we will have a perspective from our state president of the Iowa-Nebraska State Area Conference of Branches, Ms. Betty C. Andrews. Then we will have perspective from the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Ken Croker. Perspective from One Human Family, Pastor Rich Hendricks. Perspective from Juvenile Justice Coalition, Marjorie Mejia Carballo. Perspective from community partner Avery Johnson, and then closing remarks and questions coming to President Guster. At this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to President Guster, and he will continue our press conference.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. In November 2020, the Iowa Department of Human Rights issued a paper, Racial Disparity, an analysis of 3 decision points in our juvenile justice system. With concerns about the impact on African Americans and people of color, the NAACP has been reviewing the breakdown of referrals, detentions, detention admissions, and adult transfers in Scott County compared to other counties in the state. Example, Polk, Lynn, Black Hawk, and Woodbury counties. We are alarmed that Scott County disproportionate impact leads these 5 counties in all 3 categories. Scott County, at just a fraction of the size of Polk and Lynn County, sends more kids to the adult system over the past 4 years. More than 500 kids have been sent to the adult court in this county alone. Polk County sent 69. Lynn County sent 103. There's something wrong with that picture. And very few kids who are charged as adults in Scott County go to prison. The Iowa Department of Human Rights searchable database indicates that 144 out of 502 kids in Scott County were sentenced to something that was eligible for more than 5 years in prison, meaning that 72% of kids in the adult system could have been served in the juvenile justice system, which would have allowed some type of treatment, service to the age of 21. Therefore, the Davenport NAACP is calling for 3 things. Number 1, we request the Iowa Department of Human Rights and the Human Rights Division of Criminal and Juvenile Justice Planning to conduct an audit that shall include a full examination of the Scott County juvenile justice system, including a review of decision point, judicial practices, deferment program, police referral, racial disparities, and the use of waivers to adult courts. In Scott County, the audit should be comparable in scope to the Iowa Board of Education 2018 audit of the Davenport Community School System. The Davenport NAACP believes the inequities of suspensions and referrals to special education found in the school system are related in similar inequities in the juvenile legal system, thus laying a foundation for Scott County school to prison pipeline. The Davenport NAACP calls for this audit in conjunction with the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP declaration that Iowa needs to take immediate measures to drastically address Iowa's high-ranking juvenile justice disparity with a thorough internal examination and immediate implementation of a plan of action. The NAACP rejects the increased size of the proposed new juvenile detention center. As a matter of ensuring a safe place for youth in crisis and delivering best practices, the NAACP recognizes the county's quest to build a state-of-the-art juvenile detention center. However, erecting a modernized facility should not be an excuse for increasing the number of youth in the facility that it will hold. The NAACP rebuffs the notion that the new detention center must increase capacity to 60 beds, which will also be a violation of current Iowa code. If the extremely poor juvenile justice outcome in Scott County are at the very least brought into alignment with the rest of the county, of the country, the center should serve no more than 24. Number 3, finally, the NAACP opposes the use of the American Rescue Plan Act funding Juvenile Detention Center. As these dollars are designated to mitigate societal damages caused by COVID-19, by the COVID-19 pandemic. The NAACP encourages Scott County to invest the $4.5 million. Well, it seems like now it's $10 million. Since they have decided that they're going to double down on this amount that they want to use. I mean, it seems kind of strange that nobody's listening over there in Scott County. But let me continue on. They should take this $10 million that they're talking about now to build capacity in existing neighborhoods, neighborhood-based programs with history and credibility working with the underserved blacks and Hispanic families. Yes. Restore the justice, restore the juvenile justice, and youth engagement. These communities were hit the hardest by this pandemic. Yes. And in order to foster equity, deserves additional support. I want to thank you because this is an important issue. Thank you for showing up. This is important. We have no business being third in the nation. I just don't think that's a place I would want to be recognized as in the country.
That's right. That's right.
Now, and as we look at that, when we find that Scott County is the driver of those numbers, I just don't think we want to be seen as leading that charge or any way, kind of shape, form, or fashion. So, at this time, I am happy and very excited to bring to you Ms. Betty Andrews, President of the Iowa, Nebraska NAACP State Conference of Branches and founder of the Iowa Summit on Justice and Disparity.
I want to thank you, President Guster. Thank you also, Pastor. We appreciate your service. And I'm here today to offer some context. Not only are we standing in Scott County, we're standing in Iowa. We're standing in the place, and just a little bit about me, I guess I should start there. I'm president of the Iowa, Nebraska NAACP. We have about 30 units across the state of Iowa. And this issue affects Scott County, but it also affects numerous other counties across the state. And I want to just first emphasize that. And so my story is that was about 2007, 2008. I came across a sentencing project report that said that Iowa ranked worst in the nation for incarcerating African American people in terms of the disparity. And that number shook me, but when I realized that number was for every one white person, it was 14 African Americans per capita. So if you think about that, just take a moment to digest that. 1 and then 14. That's 14 times. That's crisis. Absolutely crisis. And then when we dig further into those numbers and find out that Iowa ranks, depending on what year it is, number 1 or number 3 in the detention of our youth, in that disparity. I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a community member, and that's pain. if you switch this up, and this was happening to white communities, people would be ready to go up in arms.
Wouldn't happen.
But we're talking about Black and brown youth. So from that, I was floored, and I made it my life's work, one of my purposes, to address this issue. And with that, I founded the Iowa Summit on Justice and Disparities that happens each year. We're on our 9th annual this year in Des Moines, Iowa, Des Moines area. And we address incarceration, we address the juvenile disparities, and a number of other issues. We address the why. We work through what's going on. That summit is coming up December 7th in Ankeny, Iowa. And then I also stepped forward in the NAACP. It's the reason that I'm the state president, because we needed to change these numbers. We needed to look at what is happening in our juvenile justice system. And we moved some things. We were able to work with the legislature, the governor, etc., to make some changes. But clearly, those changes are not enough. Now, we know now, just for the purposes of understanding, that our adult numbers are slowly ticking backwards in a good way. So we're now number 9 in our ranking. But that's not what's happening in our youth department. And it's scary. So the other day when I was talking to President Guster, and we were looking at these numbers, it's amazing because I had to give I was in Des Moines and he's in Davenport, and I had to give my staff just a moment. I needed a moment to vent because these numbers are overwhelming. When you think about, according to the Sentencing Project in Iowa, our detention rate for youth is 721. Now I know President Guster said that in the ratio we're about 9, the ratio is 8.7. But in terms of detaining our young people, Iowa is at the absolute top, 721 per 100,000. That's higher than anywhere in this nation. And so we appreciate this press conference and President Guster and others calling for the audit of the juvenile justice system, and that falls under the judicial branch. We appreciate that because we're not going to change this unless we look at this system. This system is broken. It's not tilted, it's not leaning, it doesn't have a little owie. It's broken. It's time out for Band-Aids. It's time out for trying to build more center with more beds to address the fact that this system needs to be overhauled. It's time out for Iowa not taking a serious examination of its practices and the outcomes for brown and black youth. It is time out for that. We meet quarterly with the Chief Justice for the Iowa Supreme Court, and we are addressing this issue with her, and that's great, but we don't want it to take forever, because our youth are growing up in crisis. And when our youth are in crisis, our families are in crisis. And when our families are in crisis, our community is in crisis. Our community is in crisis, not just a one-time crisis, but a years-long nightmare. And we have to wake up. We have to wake up. And so I know that President Guster, and I appreciate the 3 points, and I absolutely agree with them, and they are very similar to the points of our state NAACP, but it is time to make this change. This is embarrassing to us as a state. Oh, let me think. Are Iowa's youth worse than youth elsewhere in this country?
No.
You sure? You sure? Because that's what the numbers say.
Wrong.
Absolutely wrong. This disparity is killing us. It's killing our community. And when you think about, in just Scott County, I'm picking on y'all just for a hot second, when you think about a community where the school system is failing, when you think about a community that is interested in getting rid of the Civil Rights Commission, there's some problems here. There's some problems here. And certainly, unfortunately, you all are a huge example to us in the state of where we don't want to go. But we're already there, right? We're already there. And so I, again, just want to emphasize how important it is for us to fix, and when I say fix, overhaul, throw out, repair, kick out, so we can bring something better in. It's time out. Let's go to one of our neighbors. They're doing better than us. One of our neighboring states. Let's just get to those numbers. They're still horrible, but let's get to those numbers. So that's all I have, but I just want to encourage you and thank you for stepping forward with this fight. We will address this at the Iowa Summit on Justice and Disparities in December. That is a NAACP-sponsored summit, so just wanted to bring that out. It brings together lawmakers and activists and judges, et cetera, et cetera. The governor and the chief justice are often present, so that's one other thing that we can do to kind of look at what's happening here. Thank you.
I'm Reverend Rich Hendricks. I'm the pastor of the Metropolitan Community Church of the Quad Cities and the co-founder of One Human Family QCA. I am honored and humbled to be here. And I want to thank all of the speakers and organizers because this was so necessary. Language matters. Actions matter more. The definition of insanity, according to Alcoholics Anonymous, is to continue to keep doing the same things over and over and over again, and expecting different results.
Yes.
The spending of millions of taxpayer dollars on unneeded capacity to lock up our children is insanity. What we've been doing for years and years, and of course the problem has only gotten worse, not better. So the solution is not, well, let's build an even larger prison for our children. We know that that will only lead to more children being detained in the system and more children ultimately headed for prison. The thing about locking people up is they get out, right? And 90% of the time they are worse when they get out than when they came in. How is that helping anyone? It's certainly not helping our children. It is not helping our overwhelmed police officers. It is not helping our community financially or decreasing crime. It is not time to build a new monstrosity for our children. Language matters. These are not juvenile offenders. They are children, citizens, and future adults. What is needed is more social workers to take the burden off of police officers. What is needed is an investment in our schools and communities instead of money spent on buildings and correctional staff. I fully support President Guster's three-point plan. But here's the sad part. The research, the statistics are all in support of everyone here today who's standing against this perversion of justice. And the truth is that our school discipline and our policing and our criminal justice system are all the products of institutional racism. And we don't want to face that. The result, whatever might be some people's good intentions, and Lord knows there's well-intentioned people out there, but the result is the oppression of minorities.
Yes.
That's not going to change by building a bigger jail for our children. It will change if we invest in both prevention and restorative justice. Yes, there is a limited place for temporary detention of minors who commit serious offenses. I am a person of faith, and people of faith believe that people, especially children, are capable of change.
Yes.
Have we forgotten that? It is essential. It is at the core of every religious faith that people can change. They can become better. What our children need are more chances, more opportunities, and more funding of this, and less funding, and not more funding, of the school-to-prison pipeline. Here's the saddest part today, and why we have to stand before you saying what should be obvious to everyone. The sad part is that elected officials, including most of the Board of Supervisors and many in city government, don't care about the truth. They don't care about the reality of this situation or what best practices say is the best way to help our children. They don't care. They are deaf to reason, deaf to logic, in favor of the insanity of that children's song. Take the keys and lock them up. Lock them up, lock them up. That's what they're singing, and it's the only tune they're singing, and it's the only voices they're listening to. Take the keys and lock them up. May actually win them votes, but it is morally wrong and unjust. It is a policy that has not worked, will never work, and is not worthy of investing more of our limited community resources in. Language does matter, but actions matter more. How we treat people matters more than anything else. When we see rising youth crime, all these politicians see are delinquents who deserve to be locked up. It is a very, very short-sighted and mean-spirited look at our children. It is a long-term, harmful, discriminatory policy indeed. Law and order, lock them up, may win you some votes, but it is destroying our community. is in fact the definition of insanity.
Amen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ken Crokin, and maybe not so proud member of the Scott County Board of Supervisors today. It's my job to bring you regards and regrets from Representative Akeo Abdul Samad, who had intended to be with us today, but sadly at the 11th hour was unable to be here. So I'm proud to be his understudy. Listening to all that's been said so far, and so much very important has been said so far, I want to underscore and share just a couple of thoughts. First, how proud and pleased and blessed we are to have leaders like Michael Guster in our community. Pastor Grimes in our community. And how honored we all are, I know I speak for all of us, that President Andrews has come out to lend support to our local fight of a much broader issue that is truly statewide. Think about it. America incarcerates more than any other nation in the world. Iowa incarcerates more than any other state in America. And Scott County incarcerates more than any other county in the state of Iowa. You know, this was the goal. A couple of thoughts, and Rich Hendricks is always so eloquent, you know, that they ought to amend that, you know, never follow kids or a dog act on stage. Well, don't try to follow Rich Hendricks either. Aside from the moral depravity, and I don't think I'm overstating that, the moral depravity of incarcerating children who are yet capable of redemption, as horrible as that is, and others have spoken to that, so I don't mean to diminish it, it doesn't work. It's expensive. It's foolish. It doesn't work. The research is unequivocal that if our goal is to reduce juvenile crime in this community, the last strategy to have any impact or benefit is incarceration. And yet, that's Scott County, my colleagues on the Scott County Board of Supervisors have agreed to donate $35,000 a year for the next 5 years to a juvenile assessment center. That's all we got, you see. However, we do have $20 million to build what will become the state's largest juvenile detention center on a per capita basis, because our children are just that bad. And I want to quickly tell you, these are not black children, these are not brown children, these are our children. They're all our children. So I want my black and brown neighbors to know you're not alone. There's a lot of us who understand and who share your feelings of degradation. I don't think, again, is an unwarranted word. I also want to call out our friends in the 3rd Ward who are struggling to build a welcoming, inclusive community, and who are struggling against all manner of misfortune, we'll call it, for lack of a better word right now, although better words are in my head. But they're struggling, and we have a county board that says, we're just going to put the world's biggest juvenile jail in your neighborhood, deal with it. Not a word of consultation, not a word of communication. We're just going to put it there because we're not going to put it in our neighborhoods. We're going to put it in your neighborhoods. Again, I want to add my thanks. I've thanked others here already, but I want to add my thanks to all of you for being here today. All of you who showed up yesterday to watch who showed up yesterday in opposition to the spending of ARPA dollars intended to provide economic stabilization to families and businesses struggling as a result. Nothing says economic recovery like a bigger jail, right, folks? Yeah. So, and despite the eloquent and unending, seemingly, testimony urging people not to do this, the county board went from $4.5 million in ARPA money to this detention center to $5.5 million to $6 million to a jaw-dropping $10 million, 1/3 of our ARPA dollars, to go into what they then ranked as the #1 priority for Scott County. I don't know how to say this any more clearly. If you have a failed strategy to reduce juvenile crime, and if the issue is the over-incarceration of children of color in our system, the solution is not build a bigger jail.
Right.
I mean, it's like crazy talk, right? In any event, I want to thank you all for being here. You know, it wasn't that many weeks ago when Representative Cindy Winkler, John Dept, Jane Duack, Mike Guster, you know, there was a handful, seemingly, of people who were coming together saying, how are we ever going to stop this? And every day, every week, the numbers get bigger, the voices grow louder, the determination is palpable to do something about this. We need to invest in community-based solutions, not bricks and mortars. And I thank you all for lending your voices and for making time for me. And Margie, I think it's you.
Hello, my name is Margie Mejia Carabello. I am currently Vice President of Progressive Action for the Common Good and also Chair of the Juvenile Justice Coalition. We are here to address the proposed construction of a new Scott County Youth Detention Center, which would triple capacity from 14 beds to possibly 60 beds. This facility is expected to cost millions of dollars. As people have said, those millions continue to change every day. And one thing we haven't talked about, and how much is it going to cost to staff this facility? It is expected to be about $1 million a year. 1 million. What other issue do we spend $1 million a year on? I don't know. PACG and Juvenile Justice Coalition are not against the building of a new facility, but rather the size of the facility and that the money to build it is coming from the American Rescue Plan. How ironic that money that should be used to rescue people will be used to build a facility to lock juveniles up. And who will these juveniles be? They will be our black and brown children, and lots of other children thrown in there, But must I remind you that no state in the country has placed a higher proportion of black youth in juvenile facilities than Iowa. Iowa is known for lots of things, lots of nice things, things that make us smile. Iowa is known for maid rights, for corn and more corn, and agriculture. It will be a very shallow victory for Davenport, Iowa, to be known for the biggest detention facility in the state. I implore folks to use that American Rescue Plan money to rescue people out of poverty, out of homelessness, and lacking health care. Take those millions of dollars and put it in people's lives to create permanent change.
Good afternoon, family. My name is Davenport, and I'm a 25-year-old Quad Cities native. I'm here speaking on behalf of the youth I work with at Project Renewal, the black children and families who are disproportionately affected by Scott County's juvenile justice system, and for different underrepresented groups within the Quad Cities. While my team and I support renovations to the current juvenile detention center, we do not support the expansion of it, especially if that expansion is using $10 million in COVID relief money. We come here today to offer the Scott County Board a chance to be on the right side of history. We propose the county uses the funds they have already allocated to invest in community restoration programs throughout the areas most affected by Scott County's juvenile justice disparities. In the rest of my speech, I will highlight the benefits of investing in community restoration. I will explain how the disparities present in Scott County's juvenile justice system are the true crisis in this situation. And I will present a call to action to my fellow Quad Cityans to join me in holding the Scott County Board and other entities responsible for their policy decisions. Since the county board announced their plans to expand the current juvenile detention center, numerous professionals have explained why this would be a detrimental policy decision. My team and I have heard their reports loud and clear, and we trust the professionals. Seen through the actions of great leaders, like State Rep. Mikhail Abdul-Samad, it is clear that we need to invest in community restoration and family resource programs, existing and non-existing. If the county board decides to make this investment and be on the right side of history, data shows this decision will minimize the need for juvenile justice services by providing programs and assistance to youth and their families, increase the community revenue through offering employment and professional services, create more sustainable relationships between citizens and county officials and organizations which serve them, increase pride and hope within these communities through investing in community placemaking efforts and the citizens themselves. Investments made in the people are the wisest investments. We can help build a more equitable and self-sufficient community. Together, we can eliminate the current disparities that are plaguing Scott County. According to a recent sentencing project report that many have stated, the black child placement rate in Iowa was more than double the national average, where our black children are nearly 9 times as likely as their white peers to be committed to juvenile justice and detention facilities. To make matters worse, a review of statewide data from 2016 to 2019 shows that racial disparity was highest in Scott County. Scott County has driven much of the statewide disparity because over 70% of the children who enter our juvenile justice center and detention facilities are black. Expanding our current juvenile justice system without addressing the disparities within it will only add fuel to the fire and place more black children under the control of the state. We are failing the children in our community, specifically the black ones, and they need our community leaders to step up and resolve the root causes of these disparities. These are children we're speaking about, not problems, dollar signs, criminals, or statistics. They're our future. In closing, I'd like to thank the NAACP Iowa Nebraska Conference President, Ms. Andrews, Davenport Branch President, Mr. Gussman, State Representative, Mr. Guzman, who couldn't make it, you, Mr. Crokin, and for engaging the community in this discussion. This conversation is personal to me. I work at Project Renewal, where we grow with the children of this community every day. I know this expansion is the last thing the children in our community need while dealing with a global pandemic. To make matters worse, one of the proposed building sites is directly across the street from our program, where we instill hope and options into our students. My boss and I are now having to plan around the effects of this building could have on our subconscious mind. My boss and I are now having to plan around the effects this building could have on the subconscious minds of our growing students. Due to this, my team and I are issuing a call to action to all Quad Cities, young and old. We ask that you advocate in whichever way you know best. I am currently building a community advocacy group that ensures the concerns of different underrepresented groups within the Quad Cities are heard and addressed. If you are interested in being a part of this advocacy network, please reach out to me on social media or email me at averypearl, AVERYPERL96@gmail.com. Underrepresented voices matter, and together with the help of the Scott County Board and the juvenile justice system, we can create a more equitable Quad Cities. Thank you for your time and much love.
Thank you, Avery. I think that was pretty well stated.
All right.
To each of the speakers that came today, I want to personally thank you. I know your passion. We've got our work cut out for us. And I just want Scott County officials to know that we are not done fighting.
All right.
We are going to continue to move forward, and let me just tell you that we're going to defend our youth. We're going to get them the services that they need. So with that, I want to acknowledge the following groups: Quad City Pastors Conference, the One Human Family, Progressive Action for the Common Good Civil Rights Forum, Churches United of the Quad Cities, Davenport, Bearing Witness, Juvenile Justice Coalition of the Quad Cities, and Village of 1,000 Elders. These groups are standing with us, and I can tell you I expect many, many more to stand with us in the coming days. Because as the speakers have said, it is morally wrong to do what you're doing in Scott County. The question that I have is why? Why?
Money.
Why does Scott County officials want to build this humongous facility and not provide the funding to help our children? The question is why?
Yes, sir.
And I'll let each one of you answer that. So, thank you for coming, and I really appreciate this effort. The fight continues, and at this time, we'll take any questions. I'll get that. Yes,
So what's our plan to fight this? What are we going to do?
Well, first of all, we've said that we're going to ask the Iowa Human Rights, the Iowa Department of Human Rights to come in and do an audit of the the juvenile justice system here in Scott County.
How about showing up at the board meetings and speaking, that's what they want to do? Yeah.
Exactly, Darren. I'm going to announce it, Darren, as a meeting this afternoon that we can show up to show our displeasure to the Board of Supervisors about this building and about them going to spend ARPA fund money to build it, to help build it, rather than to spend it in the way of trying to spend it on intervention programs, diversion programs, community type programs.
What time is where is that for everybody?
4 o'clock at the administration building on the first floor in Davenport on 4th Avenue.
West 4th, right? West 4th and Gaines?
4th and Gaines. Any more questions from the media? Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. So you said it was said a couple times that there's a proposed 60-bed maximum for this new detention center. However, the proposed number of beds is 40 beds. So I was wondering where that came from, that number came from.
Scott County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, because everything that I've done in research, it says that it's a 40-bed maximum.
Ken, you want to address that?
Yes, certainly. The design being called for is a 40-bed facility expandable to 60. So it's, and of course the model that I think is being proposed by people here today is a 24-bed facility expandable to 28. So there is give in the design that would allow for future expansion.
Okay. My next question.
Let me comment on that. I know that Ken wants it to be at 28, expanded 28. The NAACP stands firm that there should be no more than 24 beds. Because the data supports that.
I've been handed a document that reminds me that the proposal that came in front of the board was a recommended option, new JDC facility to be 40 beds, but with an expansion possibility. Core support functions to be sized to accommodate future bed space additions up to 60. So while there is no immediate plan to open up 60 beds, the facility would be built to accommodate them over the long haul.
Okay, so it's built to accommodate 60, but you have 40 beds.
Right.
Okay.
Let me also say that our Department of Human Rights, in their report, recommended 24, no more than 32. This is our human rights division. And so why do we need 40 beds? That's the question. And not spend that money on diversion program. Scott County Board of Supervisors has decided they're going to spend $700,000 over 5 years, and that's just a drop in the bucket.
Well, I also have just one more question.
Okay.
I also heard a few times that you said that Iowa incarcerates the most Black individuals in the nation, and I was wondering where that data came from, because in a quick Google search I found from prisonpolicy.org that Wisconsin is the state that incarcerates the most Black individuals, and Iowa was 6.
So I know I made the comment that in 2007, 2008, the numbers were that we were the highest in the nation. We held that high spot. In 2016, Wisconsin did arise as the highest. We are still very high. And so I think our numbers are probably 10 times. So to be clear, we were talking about 2007, 2008. I also mentioned in my presentation that those numbers have improved.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
More questions?
The 2020 report from the Iowa Department of Human Rights has been mentioned by you and other speakers that lists issues with disparities in the juvenile justice system in Iowa. I guess my question is, how do you foresee this audit being different from the work that the Department of Human Rights has already done, outlining, issues with the system, recommendations to lawmakers for change? How would this be different from that, and what would this address that report did?
I think when I mentioned in my remarks that they would do an audit of much similar to what the Iowa Department of Education did with our school system, there was a lot of inequities in terms of disparities dealing with black children being enrolled in special ed. And so they found that there was a lot of disparity there, and we think that leads to the same type of disparities within our juvenile justice system. And so we think that by them doing that audit, it will reveal the inequities within our system. I said earlier in a particular town hall, it seems to be two types of justice here in the state of Iowa. Justice for black and justice for whites. And they are entirely different. You have similar crimes or the same crimes committed, but guess what? There are different sentencing that takes place for blacks versus whites.
I think President.
I just wanted to make sure I addressed your question too. Let me ask that again.
Right. So
the audit. Okay. Yeah. So what we're looking for is a much more comprehensive audit. I actually did speak with the Iowa Human Rights Criminal and Juvenile Justice Planning Department, and this would be something that would be much stronger. Definitely the request here is focusing on Scott County, but we have two new reports that say that we need to dig deeper. And also, our call includes immediate implementation. So a plan of action and a plan of action that will move us forward. And I think that's the whole point of this, is to address the outcomes for juveniles in this community, rather than just, first of all, talking about it, but what changes are we going to make besides building a new facility? Or to some degree, in lieu of building a larger facility.
Okay, Dan.
Thanks for having us today. I got a question for either of you. Does the NAACP have a rating on the judges, seeing how there's retention every year, and it seems as though the judges are part of this pipeline. If there is some sort of scoring system, anything I find is done by the Bar Association, which seems not real objective, seeing how they're going to be in front of judges.
So we don't have a rating system on the judges. We do, however, address issues that arise. We also meet directly with the Chief Justice and actually many of the members of the Supreme Court. Actually, even before Chief Justice Christensen came in, we met with Chief Justice Cady. One of the things that came out of that is that every person that is employed by the courts has to go through implicit bias training. So we are tackling those issues. We understand that it is the decision points that drive the disparities, and that's whether to arrest or detain, whether to have probation, the sentencing, and all of those. So we do understand, and we work within that framework.
I had
pays for it?
I take it that the department would perform an audit. I'm just wondering what the associated cost would be for that and who would pay for it.
Well, I can tell you one cost would be more black kids in jail. That would be the cost.
Amen. I will say though that there are, and again, in speaking with the CJJP, there are planning and grants out there that could cover some of that. But quite frankly, Iowa's obligation to its citizenry is to make sure that this happens. So it's not just the long run will pay for this. So what happens in the long run when we turn these things around for our youth? That's what will pay for this.
And then,
There was mention about the size of this facility would violate Iowa code. Can you speak to that?
Well, I think that right now that Iowa is authorized about 208 beds, and those are spread out through counties throughout the state of Iowa. And I don't, at the top of my head, I don't know the correct number for Scott County, but I know that it exceeds 18. Go ahead, Ken.
The Iowa State Code currently prescribes that the Department of Human Services shall not grant a license beyond 272. It's an oddly specific number, but 272 licenses throughout the state. All 272 are currently allocated to various jurisdictions. So the only way, well, let me point out an example. The so-called state training school in Eldora built an additional number of, built additional capacity that has yet been able to open because they could not get a license because it would exceed the 272 max. There's two approaches that the county could pursue. One is to change state law, and it is my belief and impression that at least one Scott County senator is exploring that option at the moment. The other is to visit with the other jurisdictions who are not currently using all of their beds, which, oh, by the way, is all of them, and seeing which ones of them would return licenses to the Department of Human Services to be reallocated. So that, for example, Polk County today has 66 licenses. I can't say that word plural, but they have 66 licenses for beds. They are currently operating 33, and it is my belief and impression that they have expressed a willingness to relinquish 11. So that would bring, and I'd just like to make a little point here, that would bring Polk County down to 54 beds to serve a population 3 times the size of Scott County, and would bring Scott County up to, well, nearer to its goal of 40 beds. So the ratio of bed to juvenile in the state currently is 1 to 1,000 in Scott County, 1 to 1,800 in Polk County, and 1 to 2,500 across the state. So apparently, again, our children must be really, really bad because we need a lot of juvenile detention beds. If that reordering happens, that comparison only gets more dramatic, not less.
Another question. Yeah.
So when is the vote, when will the board vote on whether they're going to spend the $10 million with the juvenile detention center? What is that date?
The date is to be determined. The Scott County Board is currently in a process of identifying its priorities for spending the $33.6 million ARPA dollars. Where they are at this moment is ranking the relative projects into high, medium, and low priority. No vote can occur unless it's at a full board meeting, and it has not been added to an agenda for a full board meeting. I would expect it, and this is me speculating, I would expect that it will become a vote before the end of the current year, but one could always track that on the county website where the agenda is posted the week prior to the meeting.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, I want to again thank everybody for coming out, and remember that the board meeting is at 4 p.m. at 4th and Gaines at the administrative building. Thank you very much.
That would actually be 6th and Gaines at 600 West 4th Street. So don't go to the courthouse. Come to the county administrative building. 6. All right, well.
But 600 West 4th Street.
The address is 600 West 4th Street.
It's North of Gaines.